It was a marathon bargaining session on day 118, then day 119 of the lockouts, as both sides are clinging to hopes of saving the schedule from another swipe of the axe. Welcome to Game Time. Alongside Steve Smith, I'm Vince Cellini. 15 hours plus of negotiations. And Smitty, what do you make of this long day of talks?
Well, I look at it as you saw some progress because you saw some smiles and the tone was different. But I think when you look at it, you still have to really categorize this as a to be continue, and they will reconvene starting at 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Today. That's right.
Today.
That is the good news. And the tone was very different from a week ago. In fact, let's listen now as Commissioner David Stern, Deputy Commissioner Adam Silver addressed the media after stepping out of the long session.
Hope to, use tomorrow's session to continue making and building upon the progress that we made today. In answer to the questions that you didn't ask, we're not going to talk about the particular progress. Our deal with the union is that we don't discuss that, and both sides have agreed that we don't have any overall, until we have an overall deal, we don't have a deal on anything. And the interesting thing about that, and one of the reasons that's so, is because even in the course and within a day, sometimes the parties change their negotiating positions. They might retract something, extend something, all as we try to fashion a different system. But the energy in the room has been good. The back and forth has been good. And we're looking forward to tomorrow. We're going to knock ourselves out with them, consistent with what's in the best interest of our fans and our players in terms of a schedule, to try to schedule as many games as possible. Whether that gets to be, if we could make a deal this week, whether that gets to be 82 games or not is really dependent upon so many things that have to be checked. We've got building issues. We've got building issues versus, hockey issues. We've got travel schedules. We've got all kinds of things that are, difficult for us. And we have the sheer volume of games that might have to be compressed, and the amount of back-to-backs that players could be asked to play. And really in terms of the number of games that fans could be asked in a given time to attend. So these are all considerations that would be on the table, and we're going to work on it with the union.
Are we sensing a confidence that there's a deal here to be made? I mean, when last we left you, it wasn't
me.
Well,
I leave these guys alone for a little bit of time, and all hell breaks loose.
All right, with more, let's bring in our man who covered every minute of the 15 hours plus. TNT's David Aldridge joins us now. And DA, I want to talk about both sides seeming to pull in the same direction here, really working hard to try to make this thing happen. What did you sense there as you witnessed it?
Vince, no question. I mean, I think to compare and contrast from last Thursday when the league said that there were preconditions to continue that they would not meet. And then Derek Fisher, the president of the Players Association, said that the league lied to reporters. You contrast that to today, or you contrast that to early in the morning, both sides after 15 and a half hours talking about progress, major progress that was made. And I can tell you what sources are telling me is that there was a lot of progress made on the luxury tax, and that was the one issue that really seemed to be unnegotiable between the two sides just a week ago, and they made a lot of progress. They're not there yet, but they made progress on that, and that was one of the most vexing issues that they had on the table on the system side. A lot of other things have to be done, but they have made a lot of progress on the system side, really in the last week and a half, and they are closing in. And as you said, Vince, and I think correctly so, they're pulling in the same direction now. They're both talking about the same concepts, the same ideas. It's just a matter of how much do you do to get to the goal that you seek. But they're talking in the same language now, and that's very different than it was last week.
DA, when you get a chance to talk about, at one point you started these negotiations, it was BRI, then it was a system. And it looks like both these things have to be interrelated for both of them to happen. And a lot of fans are wondering, is there any kind of third issue that might be out there that can bridge both these two issues?
Really, no, Smitty. I mean, I think that those two are so intertwined because you can't really talk about how much money you can't talk about how you're going to split the money until you know how much money there is to split, really. I mean, you can't talk about what the cap is going to be and what the tax is going to be and all those things until you know how much money the players are going to get. Now, the thing is that they do have some idea. I mean, I do think they know where the number is going to be, at least the neighborhood. If the union's position is 52.5 and the league's position is 50, and they're talking about bands, from 49 to 51% on the owner side and 50 to 53% on the union side. Well, if you put those two together, you can see where the numbers overlap. So I think a reasonable assumption is to say that somewhere in that 51 to 52 range is probably where you're going to get this thing done. So they have an idea of where the BRI is, but until they could really whittle down the system to a workable margin where they knew what they were talking about, they couldn't really go back to BRI. So they're going to come back on Thursday, and they're going to talk about They're going to talk about system again, try to get that nailed down, and then maybe they can go over to BRI and wrap this thing up.
Okay, if they do that, DA, they get the system all taken care of, and then they turn to BRI. It doesn't sound like they're all that far apart. Will that fall into place, in your opinion? Should they get some of these other issues knocked out and agreed upon?
Well, I think, Vince, if they can get the luxury tax at least to a workable position, again, they may not finish it tomorrow, but if they can get it to a position where they know roughly what it's going to look like in terms of how much money teams that go over the tax threshold are going to spend, I think then they can move back to the BRI and make some progress there. Again, the numbers that they're talking about, they're just not that far apart. Now, it's going to be, it's still, and I've said this all along, it's going to be a heavy lift for David Stern to get his owners united past 50%, when so many of them didn't want to come to 50% in the first place. It's going to be just as difficult for Billy Hunter to come down past 52%, because that is really as far as most of those agents that we've heard about all summer wanted to go. But I think, again, to get the deal done, if you're talking about 1% one way or the other, I think that there could be some wiggle room, but I think that's where you're going to see some concepts that I wrote about on NBA.com that may come into play that might alleviate both sides' concerns about the BRI split.
DA, we got a chance to hear some positive notes talking about if they can get everything done maybe by Sunday or Monday, that there is a possibility that it might be an 82-game schedule.
Yeah, and that was telling, Smitty. I think that was something that really stood out to me. Was this is really the first time David Stern came out in early October and announced that they were canceling the first 2 weeks of the season. They're really, and I know there's been a lot written about potential and maybe they could do this and maybe they have these secret plans and everything, but nobody had actually articulated it publicly on either side that there was still a chance to salvage an 82-game season. And now they're talking about that as a possibility. It's still going to be hard, but they're not saying it's impossible. So now if they can make the progress that they think, or that they at least seem to indicate they might be able to make in the next few days, an 82-game season is still possible. It may look kind of different and weird, but it's possible. And I think that is great news for NBA fans. And again, I don't want to get too optimistic, because every time I've been optimistic, they've slapped me upside the head and knocked it out of me. But this certainly is the most optimistic talk we've heard from both sides during this entire lockout.
All right, DA, great job. 15 hours. It was like 15 rounds, and you're still on your feet. I like it. That's the way to battle.
Let's do another 15. What the heck?
I think we will.
DA, I would definitely draft you because you're going hard on back-to-back.
Absolutely.
All right, David Aldridge at the Waldorf Astoria, wrapping things up on a crazy day, but a productive day. We'll be back with the players' side of things. We'll hear from Billy Hunter and Derek Fisher and their take on what was a marathon session in New York.